I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 100. We're from the comic book store Alter Ego Comics in Lima, Ohio. And every week, we shoot a video telling you the comic books that we like the best, the comic books that we think you should be picking up at your local comic book store, among other things. And for this episode, we solicited questions from our viewers, and we'll be answering those in just a few minutes. But we did want to talk about a handful of books that caught our eye this week. And I actually should say more than a handful caught my eye this week. We're only going to talk about a few, plus one. But every book I read this week was at least good. So it was a really solid week, and it was tough coming up with a list of 3 per staff member, which is what we do at the store. But this first book that we're going to talk about was a unanimous pick by the entire staff. And that book is Cable and XForce #1 by Dennis Hopeless and Salvador Larroca. And it's kind of rare to get that unanimous pick. I think it's only happened, I don't know, maybe 3 times since we started tracking our staff picks. But Cable and XForce, honestly, I had no interest in it whatsoever. I really did not care. I don't like the character of Cable. I think his history is convoluted and boring and crazy and makes no sense. Everyone on this team, I like Colossus. I don't care about anybody else on this team. I don't care about Domino. I don't care about Dr. Nemesis or whatever his name is. Who else is there?
Forge.
Forge. I really don't care about Forge. But somehow this book made it onto my top 3 list because it's good. It's really good. And you don't have to care about any of those characters, really, to get it. Now, someone asked in the comment section of one of our previous episodes what happened to Hope at some point. But Hope is in this book. So if you've been following Avengers vs. X-Men and you're wondering, well, where has Hope gone? Hope landed in Cable and X-Force, and she's reunited with her father, Cable. Father Cable. I don't know what parish he belongs to, but Father Cable is there. I have to think, at least for me personally, one of the things that made this book so great for me was Salvador Larroca's artwork. He was the longtime artist on Invincible Iron Man, written by Matt Fraction. In fact, I think he did every issue of Invincible Iron Man, which is astounding. And he is apparently invincible because he did every issue of Invincible Iron Man. But his artwork is really solid. I've always liked his work, and I think that definitely contributed to my liking Cable and X-Force. So I haven't really told you much about the book. Maybe I'll leave that to Josh. Can you tell us?
It's good. No, I mean, it's about Cable sort of... well, initially you follow Hope, and she's trying to track down her father. Her skills at doing things like that are not inconsiderable. And you sort of see Cable as he's assembling his new... They don't ever actually call him an X-Force, but he's assembling the new team. He's running into these different people, and they're doing a great job of giving you... I mean, it's a normal length issue, but the amount of time you spend with each individual character is relatively small. They do a great job of hitting the personality of each character in the limited amount of panels and page space they have. I especially like the way they captured Dr. Nemesis in like 2 lines.
Yeah, and I will say, of the characters in there, and I didn't read that miniseries, the Doctor's miniseries that you raved about a few months ago, or many months ago, X Club, and I have very little exposure to Dr. Nemesis, but his interplay, exchange, his appearance in the book was very amusing.
Yeah.
I liked it. So yeah, it's a unanimous choice at Alter Ego Comics. Cable and X-Force is pretty darn good. Over to you, sir.
One of our other picks this week is Transformers Spotlight Orion Pax. This is written by James Roberts with art by Stephen Kurth. You may remember James Roberts from such books as Last Stand of the Records and the currently really good other Transformers book. I don't remember which one it is, if it's Robots in Disguise
or More Than Meets the Eye.
I think it's More Than Meets the Eye. It might be Disguise. It's the one Roberts is writing, and it's the awesome one. You're saying, I've seen the Transformers when they make the sound, but I have no idea what an Orion Pax is. Orion Pax was Optimus Prime's name before his name changed.
So before he became the Pope. It's like his name before he became Pope.
Before he became the Cyber Pope, and had the Matrix thing in his chest.
We have a Catholic theme running through the episode today.
Before his ascension, and they changed it. This is actually really cool. It's a one-off. It's not connected directly to anything that's going on in any other books. It's just a one-off story about a young Optimus Prime, and it's super good. You know, you see appearances by a lot of characters that are recognizable from late in the series. Some of them are kind of tonally similar to the way they are now. Some you see the way they've changed over the years. And it introduces a character that, to the best of my knowledge, is new, and he's kind of a weird, wandering, soothsayer, transformer guy with, it's not a beard, but he wears a veil, and on a robot it looks like a beard, and it's just very, very cool. It's actually one of my favorite parts. Constantly, kind of reminded me of like Kosh on Babylon 5 or Yoda. Anytime you have that person that sort of speaks in riddles and offers insight into the situation without ever actually telling anybody what to do, it's just a lot of fun, a one-and-done Transformer story anybody can pick up and enjoy.
Next up, Batman and Robin, number 15 by Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. This was actually chosen by 2 of the 3 staff members that get to choose at the store as picks of the week or pick of the week. And this actually nudged out Batman number 15 for me. I'm not a follower of Batman and Robin. I've read a few issues here and there, but I don't read it religiously. But I picked this one up because it's a Death of the Family crossover, and I really liked it. I like the portrayal of Damian. Damian's, I think, an either love him or hate him character. There's no middle ground there. And from what I've read, I really like the character. But there's great dialogue between the Joker and Damian. I mean, that's the selling point on this. Basically, the Joker does capture Damian, and then what happens next is you have to read the comic to find out. But the dialogue was great. The artwork, Gleason's artwork is really kind of unique. I think it's grown on me over the years from when he was doing Green Lantern Corps, and now he's doing Batman and Robin. It has an interesting look to it. And, you know, for me, it was the best of the Bat books this week. And there were 4 Death of the Family tie-ins that came out this week, and they were all very good. But for me, Batman and Robin was the best.
Also on our list this week, another one of our very popular choices was Avengers Assemble 10. This is the second Marvel Now issue of Avengers Assemble. If you remember, we all picked the first issue because it was really solid, issue 9. And these are written by Kelly Sue DeConnick with art by Stefano Caselli. And I think the real selling point of this book is it's a funny Avengers book. I mean, it's not humorous, it's not madcap over-the-top stuff, but it's very human. They're very relatable. They seem a lot like real people. A lot of Bendis's humor comes from dialogue, and this is more of a situational thing, and it's really a touchstone to the way the characters interact. You know, Spider-Woman is nobody's favorite Avenger. I don't know crap about Spider-Woman. But they managed to make her seem realistic, and like they make you care about what she says, and they put her on the stage with these big Avengers, Thor, Iron Man, the Hulk, and have it resonate and have her seem as important as they are. And it's just an incredibly good Avengers book, and it's especially good because you don't need to know anything. If you've seen the Avengers movie, you know everything you need to know to follow this book.
I cannot say enough good things about this book. I feel like I need to keep saying stuff because the sales aren't there. The sales, this is the lowest selling Avengers book on our shelves. With the primary Avengers in them, and it really needs to be the best-selling Avengers book. We've got some big guns like Jonathan Hickman doing Avengers and New Avengers. You've got Bendis doing, Rick Remender doing Uncanny Avengers. Avengers Assemble by Kelly Sue DeConnick is outstanding. I mean, I really cannot stress enough how well this is written, how great the artwork is by Stefano Caselli, who you may recognize from doing the artwork on several arcs of Amazing Spider-Man, but his artwork is even better on this one. As Josh said, just the interplay between the characters. You've got Iron Man, you've got Hulk, Captain America. Essentially, it's the Avengers team from the movie plus a few odds and ends like Captain Marvel and Spider-Woman. But as he said, you don't need to know who those characters are. You'll get it as soon as you pick it up. If you're a non-comics reader or someone who's never read the Avengers before, if you are a long-time comics reader, an Avengers fan, you will love this book. I guarantee you will love this book. When Bendis was doing it, it was kind of a different sort of animal, but I really love what Kelly Sue DeConnick is doing with this, and I cannot wait for the next issue. So, get it. Somewhere, please. All right, well, on to our viewer questions, and we'll try not to have this drag on too long here. I do want to thank everybody who did post a question in the comment section or email that to us, and you don't have too many to get through, but we will do our best to answer those for you. And we'll start things off with, do you want to do this one so you can do the voice?
No, I don't.
Okay. Actually, yes, this one works better for me, I suppose. Sean Connery, sir, no, he's not a sir. Sean Connery wants to know how variants work, and that's definitely a retailer question. Many of you are aware that there are variant covers for different issues. Personally, my personal opinion, as a retailer, as a comic book fan, is I hate variants. I hate them. They are a pox on the pox on the comic book community. They serve no purpose whatsoever except to spike sales on individual titles, because what needs to happen usually with variants, retailers need to order a certain number of books in order to order one variant. So Marvel incentivizes their variants like crazy. Like there's for Amazing Spider-Man 700, I think you have to order 200 copies of Amazing Spider-Man 700 in order to order one Steve Ditko variant. And then what retailers do with those is completely up to them. There is no set suggested retail price. You can put any price you want on it. You can give it away. You can sell it for the regular price as the other comics. But they really are one of the negative sides of the comic book industry that has reared its ugly head and was really contributed to the downfall of the comic book industry in the 1990s. So for me, I wish they would just go away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're talking primarily about incentivized variants. You know, your 1 in 100s, your 1 in 50s. Some companies do kind of a 50-50 cover, which is sort of in the same vein. They're still expecting people to buy multiple copies of the same book so they can sell more copies. But, I mean, they're not as bad a deal. I mean, occasionally you see multiple covers. There's a cooler one. But, yeah, it's lame.
If a publisher gives us the option of ordering each variant individually, for example, the Transformers, both Transformers books have two different covers. They have a cover A and a cover B. We don't get to choose which ones we order. We just have one line item that we order, and if it's a 50-50 split, if I order 10 copies, I get 5 of cover A and 5 of cover B. Well, recently I've had a number of customers say, I want cover B. So whoever's doing cover A for the Transformers books, you're sucking big time, because people are just converting to cover B left and right. But I can't promise them a cover B because I can't just order cover B. I have to place an order for all of them, and then I get what I get. Same way with Dynamite. They usually do a 1 in 4 variant. So if I order 10 copies, I get whatever that is, 2.5 of each cover. So it's very confusing from a retailer standpoint because even when we're given the option of ordering 2 different line items, I then have to track both of those line items for order history. So, which is why we usually, when we're given the option of ordering more than one title, more than one cover, I usually just order one. So that's probably more information than you wanted or needed, and I'm curious to see what your reaction to variances are. Yeah. Anyway, next.
Next, Viking Brace asks, what characters would you like to see get their own book? And it's a character or characters, what I like to see get my own book. Aren't there too many books already? I guess if...
Yes, next question.
Yeah, if it comes down to it, I would like to see Iron Fist, although I get a feeling we're going to get him back. If we're talking about somebody who doesn't currently or hasn't ever had their own book, I would probably read a Peter David written Layla Miller book where she goes about the world solving problems, setting right things that have gone wrong, kind of a Kane and Kung Fu thing. Mark?
First, I must respond to that by saying, if we're getting a vibe book from DC, there is no reason under the sun that we're not getting a Layla Miller book by Peter David from Marvel. So, I will actually turn that question on its head and say, which character would I like to see disappear from titles? And that would be Wolverine. I would like him to move away, disappear from every title except Wolverine and the X-Men, and maybe his own book. This character is so overused and is so... it drives so many... Our sales on the main Wolverine book are the lowest that I've seen them in 8 years. People have had enough of having Wolverine in every book. At one point, in the late 70s, early 80s, or mid 80s, and even into the late 80s, Wolverine was... We couldn't get enough of him. Enough is enough at this point, Marvel. Pull the plug. We definitely need one. Wolverine and the X-Men, Jason Aaron. I love that book. But this new book by Paul Cornell and Alan Davis that launches in 2013, maybe it'll pique my interest, but Wolverine is just everywhere. So, sorry for not answering your question. Well, that was a question from Viking Brace, by the way. I don't know if
I did say that.
Did you say that?
I totally did.
Oh, I was spacing out. Next. I'm up next. Timotheus, 1973, wants to know, does Spider-Woman know that Hawkeye is fooling around with other chicks? Timotheus, here's my theory on that. I believe Hawkeye by Matt Fraction and David Aja is taking place outside of Marvel continuity. I think it's its own thing. I think it's a pocket universe that we're not going to see other Avengers characters popping in too frequently. Hawkeye, again, has never been in costume since the series started. He's always in civilian attire. So I really think that romantic relationship that exists between Spider-Woman and Hawkeye is strictly for the Avengers, and Hawkeye is off doing his own thing.
Did he hump somebody in Hawkeye?
He did, yeah.
I missed
the
that.
redhead with the car?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I remember.
There you go.
I wanted to get this out to Matt Fraction, but I honestly forgot to. I was just going to tweet him and say, hey, what's the deal? So you could probably do that. I believe it's at Matt Fraction, and you could ask him, what's the deal with Hawkeye whoring around? I guess I get the next one, too.
Okay.
Or do you want to just jump?
I'll just read it.
Okay.
Another question from Sean Connery. How has the recession affected business? Are comic fans quick to cut books and budget?
Well, 2012 has proven to be an incredible year for the comic book industry. Sales are up double digits over 2011. Sales in our store are also up double digits over 2011. So I don't think the recession has affected us, unless the recession was really last year. But even then, our sales were not down. They were up over the year before. The industry as a whole was down. There is so much exciting new stuff going on in the industry right now, whether it's the New 52 or Marvel Now or the Renaissance over at Image Comics, or some stuff that might be coming out from Dynamite next year. Lots of A-list creators seem to be moving over to Dynamite. So comics have traditionally been looked at as a recession-proof business. However, comic fans are quick to cut books and budgets if their situation changes, if someone loses a job, if someone's spouse loses a job, if someone has a child. Usually those things will cause someone to cut back on their fund spending. And if it doesn't, then they get divorced, and I don't know. They need to take a second job as a night watchman. So I think so. The first part to your question is yes. No, the recession has not affected business, at least as far as I can tell. But comic fans will definitely trim the fat if they need to.
And it's also, I mean, a lot of the new readers coming in from things like The Walking Dead, from the New 52, are a new influx. So it's not necessarily, it's entirely possible that the same number of old comic fans are spending the same amount or are spending less. And I have noticed that with a sort of a weird catch-22, with the amount of good stuff out there, people are actually faster to cut things from their list. If I've got 20 great books coming out every month, and this book's only good, it's gone. There's too many good books coming out to settle for a book that's only okay.
And that's a problem that the industry needs to face. And my armchair quarterback opinion is that both Marvel and DC need to cut their output by 30 to 40%. They're publishing way too many books. No one reader, and no one retailer can afford to stock all of those titles or buy all of those titles. And as Josh said, I've actually had this conversation with many people in the store. If a book is good, that's not good enough. It needs to be great because there's so much competition out there. I mean, from DC and Marvel alone, you're looking at over 150 titles a month. That's insane. And then you throw in Image and Dark Horse and IDW, and you don't even get to the small independent publishers that barely, break 5,000 when they publish a comic. So, in my personal opinion, is that the comic industry needs to take an axe to anything that's selling less than X number of copies, regardless of how good it is, because there's just so much stuff out there. Greg Browns is trying to get back into comics after about 10 years off. He asks what writers and artists are must-buys. Also, what's it like running a comic book store? So I'm actually going to move that what's it like running a comic book store down to another question because it ties in with someone else's. But you've been off for 10 years. What writers and artists are must-buys? That's completely up to you because everybody has a different opinion. For me, I will read anything that Eric Powell does. I will read anything at this point that, who else? Mark Waid, even though he hates comic stores. There are plenty of people. Brian K. Vaughan, it's kind of a no-brainer. Artist-wise, there's really nobody. Like if Art Adams returned to doing a monthly comic, I would be all over that. If Walt Simonson, he's doing some covers for the Rocketeer next year, and he did an arc on the Avengers this year, and that was cool. But it's more writers for me, and I think it's more writers for Josh too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Must buy. Yeah. It's very
tough.
subjective. I'm following Scott Snyder and Matt Fraction pretty hard.
I forgot about Scott Snyder. No.
So yeah, Scott Snyder and Matt Fraction pretty consistent for me as well. I can't think of any artists that... I mean, yeah, I'm a words, not a pictures person. So no matter how good the art is, if I don't like the writer, I'm not going to read it. And Steve Dillon should be fired. That wasn't really the question. But
yes, we're
throwing that out
going to
there.
work that in everywhere. I don't want anybody to lose their job, really. I don't want anybody to go hungry.
He's been drawing the Punisher for a long time.
I have to question that decision over at Marvel with Thunderbolts. Anyway, so yeah, you really have to ask yourself, ask your friends, ask other comic fans what they enjoy, and then you just need to sample stuff and see what works for you. As we just said in the last question, there's a ton of material out there, so I firmly believe that you will find something that you like and a creator that you like to follow.
Oh, good Lord. Sorry. Next up, we've got Rob Antonucci wants to know our top 5 all-time comic books. Are we doing this as single issues or as series?
I think he's looking for series.
Series, okay.
And I should have written mine down.
Okay. Well, we'll just do 5 between us. You start.
All time.
All time. Okay,
so,
we're good.
No, here we go. All time.
Okay.
I'm just going to spitball some.
Do it.
So we may end up with more than 5. The Chris Claremont, John Byrne X-Men. Uncanny X-Men. Awesome. Brian Michael Bendis, Alex Maleev, Daredevil.
Fair.
That's what I got right now.
That's your 2?
That's what I got right now.
All time. Greatest comic books ever written. Man, that's tough. It's not an ongoing, but I would submit Identity Crisis by Brad Meltzer. It's a miniseries.
I would probably say Why the Last Man.
Oh yeah, Why the Last Man.
That's 4. Yeah.
Why the Last Man. I love Why the Last Man. All time.
Yeah.
This is tough.
Saga. No.
What's one issue of Thunderbolts? Thunderbolts.
Too soon. So one more. I'm sure we're forgetting something.
Well, if he's asking me, I will put Sandman in there. I know you wouldn't put Sandman in there, but
because I haven't read Sandman.
Well, the art makes it tough.
Yeah. You know what? There are just too many. Invincible. I throw Kirkman's Invincible in there.
That's fair.
Which is a very, well, I'm going to jump ahead. It's a very underrated series. Yeah. There's so many. There's so many.
Yeah.
Comics have been around a long time.
A lot of them.
So we may amend this list as we go along. All right. Let's see here. Mike Bighead has bombarded us with questions, which is fine, but he has a whole bunch of them. And I'm going to start with one. He wants to know how we feel about fans that won't pick up a book if it's not a #1. I actually have never thought of that question before. And I don't know if I know very many comic fans that, fall into that category. I think most people, if they're interested in a series, if they're interested in a crossover or an event that's going on, they'll pick it up, regardless of what number is on the front.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to a certain extent I'm that way. I mean, I always want to start from the beginning if I can, but if it's not available, then yeah, you just
and with the accessibility of graphic novels and trade paperbacks these days, I mean, for example, we've seen a lot of people jump into The Walking Dead now, and they're picking up the graphic novels first, working their way through those, and then jumping on to the monthly series, even though it's over issue 100. So I don't know if a #1 means as much. You do see a sales spike with #1s for people trying stuff out,
sure.
But I don't know if it's all that important.
Well, I mean, it depends on the book. I mean, if it's a book that's, an epic or something that's clearly continuous stories, you don't want to pop in The Godfather and start 25 minutes in.
Right.
I mean, at a certain point, you need to go from the beginning of the story, but I guess I don't judge people for wanting to do that,
but
or not.
There was an old saying, I think Marvel came up with it, but every comic is someone's first comic.
Right.
So every comic should be written so that you can pick up issue 57 and issue 1 and still be able to understand what's going on. And the same thing goes with episodic television. I mean, I didn't start watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer at the beginning. I started in the middle. Same thing with Babylon 5. I started in the middle. But I was interested enough that I went back and checked them out from the beginning. But the content hooked me in the middle of the series. What got each of us into comics, and have we ever fallen away? You go first.
What got each of us into comics?
Well, speak for yourself.
Yeah, the first time I originally got into comics when I was 9 or 10, there was a comic shop in Sydney, Ohio, by my orthodontist. So I wandered in there and picked up a Spider-Man issue that featured the original X-Men. And that got me hooked for a number of years. I did stop reading in high school and into early college, but then I came back when Mark opened the store here in Lima, and I got back into this.
Now he's living the dream. For me, it was Secret Wars. It was 1983, 84. I was 10, 11. And I was a huge Super Friends fan. I loved watching the Marvel cartoons on TV. And there was a kid in the neighborhood, an older kid, that was collecting comics, and he had Secret Wars and let me read them, and I was hooked. You know, you had all the heroes and all the villains in one book for 12 issues. And I didn't even know who I didn't know who the X-Men were. I didn't know who the Avengers were. I knew Captain America and Spider-Man, but that hooked me, and I've been with it ever since. I scaled back a little bit, maybe right out of college, so in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s.
That was a good time to scale back.
Yeah, and there's a reason. There's a reason I scaled back. It's because they were not very good. But it's hard to. It's in my blood. I think if you're a comic fan, it's really hard to give them up, and there's really no reason to, unless you're destitute. But there's got to be a way to pick up a comic here or there. Where do we think the industry is going? Well, hopefully going up. As someone who makes a living in this industry and provides a living for a few people, I expect good things from the industry if they think, if they use their heads, if they don't repeat the mistakes of the past. And we're kind of seeing some of those things come back with the variant covers and with no overprint policies. It's tough to get someone into a series that's new if you're not going to give me a second printing or a third printing of the first issue. And relying completely on retailers to take the risk of stocking heavy on something, in many cases that we haven't even read yet, is just absurd. So some of those things are starting to take shape, but I also think we're seeing more creativity in comics than we've ever seen before. Not just from the big two, but on the creator-owned side. It was big news this week that Gail Simone was fired off of Batgirl, and she's got some creator-owned projects that are going to land somewhere, whether it's at Image or Dark Horse or who knows where, but her fan base is going to follow her. I mean, right now, I'm trying to think of another big name that's doing that. Well, it'll happen next year. You've got, Matt Fraction has a creator-owned book over at Image. Greg Rucka's doing a creator-owned book over at Image in 2013. Lots of people who have done work for Marvel and DC have realized, why am I creating these characters? I'm basically playing in someone else's sandbox. I'd rather have complete control over these characters, and whether they get picked up for TV or movies or bed sheets and lunchboxes, or whether I just tell a really cool story in comic form, those characters are mine. So I think we're going to see a lot of new, really good creator-owned stuff, and that forces Marvel and DC to step up their game. So a rising tide raises all ships, as we saw with the New 52.
Am I responding? Oh, yeah. I guess the other aspect of that is, at this point, Marvel and DC, who publish 80–90% of the comics that come out, are owned by two of the largest corporations on the planet. And I don't see that actually as a bad thing so much as I see it as a good thing. I mean, Time Warner and Disney know how to make money. They're not going to let these guys get into the situations they've gotten to in the past. If Marvel's not selling books, hopefully Disney's going to be like, publish less, fix it. I'm hoping somebody's going to look out for the bottom line and keep them from repeating their past mistakes.
How well do digital comics sell, and do we think digital will ever replace printed comics? First off, digital, there are no solid sales figures on digital comics. No one lets that information out. From what I've heard, it's about 10% of the sales are equal to 10% of print sales. So that's not very much. I think we've seen evidence in the store that people that read digital first come in to see what else is available, or to go back and dive deeper into the back catalog. So I do think digital helps print. I think it's a mistake for the major publishers to market digital to print customers, as we are starting to see in comic books. It's a personal choice thing. If you would rather read on your tablet than have a hard copy, then more power to you. I mean, I want comics to succeed regardless of the format. But there is the little thing called collectability, and that's something that's been brought up numerous times from other retailers and on the internet. If you have a digital copy of Walking Dead #1, it's worth nothing. If you have a physical copy of Walking Dead #1, it's worth about $1,000. So if you would like to maybe recoup some of the money you've put into your collection somewhere down the road, you're not going to do that with digital. You're going to do it with print. Most underrated story arc of all time. Go.
Most underrated story arc of all time. Not technically an arc. I'm going to go with the Gotham Central series. It's written by two of the best writers in comics, Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, and it's awesome. It's CSI before CSI was big. It's the cops operating in the shadow of the bat, and most people never heard of it, and even if when they hear about it, aren't interested in picking it up. But it's great.
Using the words of all time is difficult, but let me throw three things out that I think everyone should check out. The first one is Avengers Forever by Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco. I love that series. It's my favorite Avengers story of all time. I also am a huge fan of The Goon by Eric Powell, which I think is underrated, and I think it's kind of tough to get people into it because it's hard to summarize what that series is about. And Invincible by Robert Kirkman and what's his face? I'm not going to remember. Ryan Otley, yes, and Corey Walker. Everybody is reading Kirkman's Walking Dead. Not nearly as many people are reading Kirkman's Invincible. If you want to read a Robert Kirkman superhero book that is incredibly awesome, you need to read Invincible. Personal lives. Well, I'm not going to share too much other than I'm married and have 3 children.
I'm not married and have no children.
Thank you.
That is all.
That is all. Yes. What do we do in our free time? Read comics, go to movies, go to my kids' athletic events. That's it. Let's see here. A brief history of Alter Ego Comics. Alter Ego Comics started as an online-only web store. We started selling comics. This was back in 2003. Started selling comics and related collectibles like statues and action figures. The comics didn't really fly, so I switched over to the collectible side completely. I should say that I was working a full-time job for someone else while I was doing this and working out of my home for the website. After about 18 months, the website was turning a nice profit, and I decided I wanted to... Let me go back a step. There was a comic book store here in Lima, and I approached the owner about doing some marketing for him at no cost. I was trying to help more people read comics and to get the word out, and he was kind of on the way out as far as running the store. He was a substitute teacher, and his son was running the store, and it was kind of a... I don't know. They didn't accept credit cards, they didn't have internet access, so they couldn't check on special orders for customers instantly. And I thought, you know what, I can do this better. And so I opened a store about 2 years after I started the website, and the other store, fortunately or unfortunately, went out of business about 6 months later. And so the store has been around since 2005, the website since 2003, so that means we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of Alter Ego Comics next year in 2013. We did, when I first opened, I was renting space from someone. It was about 1,000 square feet or 800 square feet. In 2009, I purchased a building, a building that's over 100 years old in downtown Lima, and that's about 4,000 square feet. So we quadrupled our space, and we've somehow managed to fill it all up again. But things are good. You know, I'm very fortunate and very blessed to be doing something that I am enthusiastic about and that I love, and that the community is supporting it, and that our online customers are supporting us as well. So thank you very much for that. Oh, okay, one more question. Rob's Rogues wants to know what our most prized possession is. And he says our, so we don't share one. We're not a couple. But I will say my most prized possession, that's a tough one. I think the thing that I really want to have around always, that's a tough one. You got one easy? You got it on top of your head?
Yeah. I guess my most prized possession, and it's not necessarily about value, but it's something that I would never sell, is I have a Super 8 copy of Star Wars that my dad picked up for me on a business trip, and he was away for a while. He came back, and that's what he brought me, and I love Star Wars. I've never actually been able to watch it. I don't have a Super 8 projector. I was born in the 80s, but it's just something that's cool that is valuable to me. So that's my prized possession.
I don't have nearly the amount of stuff I used to have, because I have, as I said, 3 children. But I think my collection of Star Trek autographs and my photos with the Star Trek actors, I'm a huge original series fan. I used to watch it with my dad in syndication when I was growing up, and was fortunate enough to go to the Star Trek Vegas convention a number of years ago and got to meet William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. And I have my photo with and autographs from all of the original crew members except for DeForest Kelley, who played Dr. McCoy. Unfortunately, he passed away before I got a chance to... I did see him at a show, but he wasn't signing autographs because of his arthritis. So, my Star Trek collection. All right. Whew. that should do it. This is a double-sized episode. This is a double-sized issue for the same cost, for the same price. You get all this bonus content, and then there'll be a director's cut that comes out later.
I'll be replaced by
by Jar Jar.
Yes.
But we do want to thank all of you that watch our episodes week in and week out. Tell your friends. Tell your family if you like it. Share it with them. Many of you have commented, have given us very, very positive comments about the show, that you think it's one of the best comic review shows on the internet, and that really means a lot to us, and that's one of the reasons why we keep coming back week in and week out, despite our busy schedules, and maybe we have a rough week reading comics or just don't feel it, but we still come back week in and week out because we appreciate you guys watching us and wanting to tune in to find out what's new and what's good. So, with that, I will say that we're going to take a break now through the end of December, and we won't be back until after the first of the year. So, we do want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Kwanzaa, and Wookiee Life Force Day, like you said, and the other one.
Life Day.
Life Day.
Not Life Force Day.
What's the dark side one? An Anti-Life Day?
Dark Side. I was thinking Jedi Dark Side. Yeah. Anti-life equation, that's just what he worships. I don't think they have a day.
Yeah. I think it's your birthday.
Is it?
But,
yeah. The end of the world. The Mayans are coming.
So yeah, just in case the world ends, thanks for watching us, and we will be back in 2013 with a whole bunch of cool content for you.
Unless Quetzalcoatl gets us, or whatever's supposed to happen.
I don't know. Those Mayans. See ya.